When it comes to AAA titles, Sony have been pretty quiet of late. But still, to prove there's more life left in the PS3, they're set to change this with the imminent release of Naughty Dog's post-apocalyptic visual splendour, The Last of Us.
The story of The Last of Us is really about Joel and Ellie. And there are these two survivors trying to make their way through a United States that has been ravaged for 20 years by this pandemic that has pretty much wiped out most of civilization. It's about the kind of hardships that they have to deal with and the bond that they form over the course of the entire game.
They don't know each other in the beginning of the game, and I think that's what sort of makes the story. I mean, the journey that, yes, you're dealing with infected and you're dealing with other types of people, but it really is about how they sort of get to know each other, and that's, the journey that they go on from beginning to end is beautiful.
The entire game pretty much all revolves around an apocalyptic virus outbreak started by a mutated fungus that has created some terrifying foes that you'll meet throughout the game. The world hasn't completely fallen to the virus, as some survivors are kept in quarantine zones under uber strict military control. This is when the story meets its lead character, Joel, a smuggler who is persuaded to escort a 14-year-old girl named Ellie to meet a resistance group named the Fireflies. Then along the way you'll meet a whole host of other survivors who will more often than not want to hurt rather than help you. And of course, the infected, which combined really does create some unique gameplay.
Coming up with the gameplay feel for The Last of Us has been very difficult because in a way we wanted to create a new genre that doesn't really exist. It kind of combines elements that we really like about action-adventure, but at the same time takes these cues and elements from survival stories and kind of mesh those two things together. So, we have to develop whole new systems of AI and how, both for the infected and the human antagonism, and then how do people coordinate and communicate with one another to try to outthink you, so you really feel like you're playing against human opponents while you're there. At the same time, this is kind of bigger levels than we've ever done before, because we wanted you to really explore and scavenge and look for supplies, and look for supplies that you could then craft items together, whether it's going to be health kits that can heal you, or whether it's like Molotov cocktails that let you be much more offensive. At the same time, those places really afforded us opportunities to develop the story between the characters. So as you're going off the beaten path, you find these really optional conversations that help flesh out that relationship between Joel and Ellie.
Throughout the journey you'll discover so many rich characters, which has been one of the reasons why Naughty Dog have had so much success with their Uncharted series. And it's great to see that they really have taken it to the next level with The Last of Us, with the relationship that develops between Joel and Ellie being one of the most cinematic and captivating stories we've ever seen grace a computer game.
A lot of the preparation that we had was mainly just visually seeing what the world was that we were in, and seeing all the design of that, and just sort of knowing who our characters were and who Ellie was and who I was playing, and then from there the circumstances would all sort of be dealt with, how Ellie would deal with them.
As well as the array of survivors you meet along the journey, there are of course the fungus-ridden infected, and they are truly like nothing you've come across in any survival horror game yet.
You get to see the different stages of infection and how the behavior of the infected person changes over those stages. So like, for example, what we call stage 3 is what people refer to in the world as clickers. And the reason they call them that is they make this clicking sound because they're blind, so they see through echolocation. So the idea was to create this sound that normally would be benign, but in this context you hear this sound, and all of a sudden, like, oh crap, you try to take cover, you try to be quiet and make sure you don't knock into a bottle or anything, because these things are very deadly. And with the human characters, really what we try to do is humanize them as much as we can. We didn't want to just to create fodder, or here are just bad guys that want to kill you for no reason. It's like, we really try to sell that these guys watch each other's back, care for one another, they're yelling for each other to be careful when they're out there, and they have a reason why they're trying to get to you. So in this demo you're seeing a group of what Joel calls hunters. And what they've done is they funnel people into Pittsburgh in hopes of killing them to steal their supplies. But that's what they need to do in order to have enough sustenance to help their group. As you go on this journey, you're going to see other groups and see kind of the extremes that they go to survive. And sometimes they might be a little more altruistic. They're trying to cultivate crops and bring society back. And sometimes you'll see the worst of mankind, how far people are willing to go when they're truly desperate to live.
Overall, The Last of Us is destined to be one of the PlayStation 3's finest achievements, and Naughty Dog should make every owner of a PS3 proud to have one under their TV. Here's to them making much more like this on the PS4.
And as far as where do we go from here, it's weird at Naughty Dog, every time we finish a project we get these questions like, are you doing a sequel, what are you going to go next? And it's like, we don't know, like because we pour so much of like our heart and soul, and like it's been crazy 7 days a week, 12-hour days for the past 6 months, that it's just like, it's a relief and excitement to have this be done with, and then we just kind of need to regroup and collect ourselves and see what we want.